At 2:07 a.m., a little boy whispered into my headset, "Please save my mom. He's making her bleed." I had handled fires, highway pileups, and calls where every second carried a life, but nothing in my training prepared me for the address he gave next. 1438 Birchwood Lane, the house directly across from mine. Elena Brooks's house. I could picture the yellow porch light she always left on, the crooked fence I had repaired last spring, and her 7-year-old son Owen racing his bicycle along the sidewalk. Now he was hiding under a bed while someone hurt his mother downstairs. I told him to lock the door, silence the phone, and breathe with me. Then my supervisor reached for the dispatch panel and said the nearest police unit would be delayed. His voice was calm. Too calm. I looked at the map, saw 2 available units less than 6 minutes away, and understood that the danger inside Elena's home might not be the only threat we were facing. Before I tell you what happened when I reached that house, please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you risk your career to answer a child who had no one else? My name is Ryan Mitchell, and at 30 I was one of the rescue lieutenants assigned to the Kansas City Emergency Communications and Coordination Center. Most nights my job was not to ride a truck. I sat between dispatchers, police liaisons, and fire command, helping turn panicked fragments into organized responses. During major incidents, I could deploy with a field team, but I was supposed to leave the building only when the duty chief approved it. That night, the duty chief was Carl Voss. "Ryan," Carl said, leaning over the divider between our stations, "keep the child talking. North Sector is tied up." His silver supervisor badge caught the fluorescent light. He had worn that badge for 11 years and used it like a shield against questions. Carl was 46, broad-shouldered, neat, and famous for never raising his voice. New dispatchers trusted him because he sounded certain even when the room was chaos. I looked at the live unit board. Patrol 312 had cleared a traffic stop 4 minutes earlier. Patrol 327 was finishing paperwork at a convenience store 3 miles from Birchwood Lane. 312 and 327 are available, I said. Carl did not look at the board. 312 has a mechanical issue. 327 is being held for a priority domestic on Jackson. The Jackson call was marked pending, not active. No complainant. No verified address. It had appeared on the screen less than a minute after Owen's call. Under ordinary circumstances, I would have challenged the assignment through procedure. But in my headset, Owen's breath hitched. "He's coming upstairs," he whispered. Everything else disappeared. "Owen, listen to me," I said, keeping my voice low and even. "Do not come out." "Is your door locked?" "Yes." "Good. Put your phone under the blanket so the light doesn't show." "Can you hear your mom?" A dull crash came through the line. Then a man shouted words I could not make out. Owen made a small sound, the kind a child makes when he is trying not to cry because he believes crying will get someone hurt. "Stay with my voice," I told him. "You are doing exactly the right thing. Help is coming." I muted the line and dispatched both patrol units myself, marking an immediate threat to life. Carl's hand closed over the edge of my desk. "You just overrode me." "Yes." "I ordered you to hold them." And I documented the override. His eyes hardened for only a second. Then the calm mask returned. "You're emotionally involved because you know the address." He was right about one thing. I knew the address. I knew Elena's porch steps creaked near the top. I knew the kitchen window faced my living room. I knew Owen liked grape popsicles and hated thunder. I knew Elena was 26 and worked early shifts as a respiratory therapist at Children's Mercy. She sometimes came home with exhaustion in her shoulders, but still knelt on the sidewalk to listen to every detail of her son's day. I also knew Derek Brooks, her former husband, had not lived there in 5 years. I had seen him once, 3 months earlier, sitting in a dark sedan at the corner. Elena had dismissed it when I mentioned it. She said Derek had no reason to return and no legal claim to the house. I wanted to ask whether she felt safe. Instead, I accepted her answer because I was afraid concern would sound like an excuse to get closer. Now that hesitation felt unforgivable. I unmuted the call. "Owen, are you still with me?" "Yes." "Can you tell me where the man is?" "Outside my door." A doorknob rattled through the phone. I stood so fast my chair rolled into the next console. "Carl, authorize Rescue 2 for immediate deployment." "No," the answer came too quickly. I looked across the operations floor at paramedic Tessa Monroe and firefighter Malik Grant, both members of the two-person rapid support unit that handled high-risk medical entries when police requested rescue staging. Tessa had already heard enough through the open channel to understand. Malik was reaching for his jacket. Carl stepped between me and the exit. "You leave this floor without authorization and you are done." From my headset came the splintering sound of wood. I made my choice. Tessa, Malik, with me. We were in the response SUV before Carl finished calling security. The drive from downtown coordination to Birchwood Lane normally took 16 minutes. At that hour, with police clearing intersections ahead of us, we made it in 11. 11 minutes is not long on a clock. It is endless when a child is whispering from beneath a bed. I stayed on the line the entire way. The man had stopped trying Owen's door after Elena screamed from downstairs. Owen heard footsteps retreat, then something heavy dragged across the living room. I asked him what he could see from under the bed. "Shoes," he said. "Mine. And Mom's blue box." "What blue box?" "Grandpa's papers. Mom keeps it in her closet." That mattered, though I did not yet know why. Police arrived seconds before us and staged without sirens. Patrol Officer Jenna Cole met me behind a maple tree 2 houses down. She had responded to enough domestic violence calls to know that noise could turn a threat into a hostage situation. "Front curtains closed," she said. "Male voice inside. Neighbor on the west side reports glass breaking 10 minutes ago." "The child is upstairs, back bedroom," I told her. "Door may be damaged. Mother is downstairs. Suspect may be Derek Brooks, ex-husband. Weapons? Unknown." I looked at Elena's house. The porch light was off. That frightened me more than it should have. She always left it burning when I worked nights, though neither of us had ever acknowledged the pattern. Jenna's partner covered the front while Malik and I moved along the fence line toward the rear. Tessa stayed in protected staging with medical gear. I knew the back gate latch stuck in cold weather because I had fixed it twice. I lifted before pulling, and it opened without a sound. Through the kitchen window, I saw Elena on the floor beside the table. Blood darkened one side of her face. Derek stood over her, holding a knife in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. "Sign it," he said. "You sign, this ends." Elena pushed herself against the cabinet. Even from outside, I saw the refusal in her posture. "It isn't yours," she said. Derek crouched and pressed the knife flat against her cheek. "It will be when the notary sees your signature." Jenna whispered into her radio, requesting entry authorization. Then a crash sounded upstairs. Owen's door had given way. Derek looked toward the ceiling. There was no time left for a perfect plan. Malik struck the back door near the lock. The frame cracked but held. I hit it a second time with the Halligan bar, and the door burst inward. Derek spun. Elena rolled away from the knife. "Police!" Jenna shouted from behind us. "Drop it!" He grabbed Elena by the hair and pulled her against his chest. I had spent years teaching rescuers that courage was not the same as rushing forward. The first obligation in a violent scene was to control distance, protect victims, and avoid giving the attacker another target. Every part of me wanted to cross the room. Training made me stop. "Derek," I said, "look at me." His eyes found mine. Recognition flared. "The neighbor," he said. That was how Elena had described me to him, the neighbor. The word hurt in a place that had no right to matter then. You came for a signature, I said. Hurting her makes the paper worthless. Let her step away, and we can talk. I don't need to talk to you. No, you need to get out of a debt you can't pay. His expression changed. It was a guess, but a useful one. Men did not break into former homes at 2 a.m. for property they calmly believed they owned. They did it because someone had given them a deadline. Behind Derek, Elena's hand moved along the cabinet until her fingers closed around a metal mixing bowl. I kept his attention on me. Who is waiting for the house, Derek? Shut up. Someone promised your debt would disappear if she signed. He raised the knife. Elena slammed the bowl against his wrist. The blade fell. Jenna closed the distance. I pulled Elena away while Malik drove Derek to the floor and pinned his arm. The entire struggle lasted perhaps 4 seconds. It felt like an hour. Owen, Elena gasped. I ran upstairs. His bedroom door hung from one hinge. The room was empty. For one terrible second, I thought Derek had taken him through a window. Then a small hand reached from beneath the bed and caught my boot. Mr. Ryan? I dropped to my knees. Owen's face appeared between a plastic storage bin and a row of shoes. His cheeks were wet, but he had kept the phone tucked beneath his chest, just as I told him. You did it, I said. You stayed hidden. Is Mom alive? Yes. I wanted to promise she was fine. Rescue work had taught me not to lie to children, even kindly. She's hurt, but Tessa is helping her right now. I'm taking you to her. He crawled out and wrapped both arms around my neck. I carried him downstairs. Elena sat on a kitchen chair while Tessa cleaned the cut near her temple. When she saw Owen, she stood despite Tessa's protest. Mother and son reached for each other with the desperate force of people who had nearly been separated forever. I turned away to give them privacy, but Elena caught my sleeve. You answered him, she said. Her voice shook. Her grip did not. I was on shift. That isn't what I meant. Before I could answer, an officer held up the papers Derek had dropped. They were quitclaim documents transferring Elena's house to a holding company called Westbridge Property Solutions. Her signature line was blank. Elena stared at the name. I've never heard of that company. The officer searched the blue box from her closet. Inside were tax records, her father's will, and a photocopy of the deed showing the house had been left solely to her. The original deed was missing. Derek, handcuffed near the front door, smiled when he heard that. You can't prove what you own, he said. Elena looked at him, then at me. Fear had not broken her. It had sharpened her. My father taught me never to keep only one record, she said. Whatever you think you stole, it won't save you. Derek's smile faded. That was the first moment I understood the attack had not begun with a desperate ex-husband. It had begun with something hidden inside that house. At the hospital, Elena needed 8 stitches and treatment for a fractured rib. Owen had no physical injuries, but every time a cart rattled in the hallway, he flinched. I stayed until a victim advocate arrived and Elena's sister drove in from Topeka. I told myself I remained because the police needed my statement. The truth was simpler. Leaving felt impossible while Owen kept watching the door to make sure I had not disappeared. Near dawn, Elena found me beside a vending machine with 2 untouched coffees. You should go home, she said. So should you. A faint smile touched her swollen face. They seemed determined to keep me. I handed her the less terrible coffee. She took it, then leaned against the wall with her good shoulder. I saw Derek outside the house in April, she said. I didn't tell you the whole truth when you asked. You didn't owe me an explanation. I know. That was part of the problem. She looked through the doorway toward Owen. who was asleep beneath a hospital blanket. For 5 years, I built a life where I didn't owe Derek anything. Not fear, not attention, not a report of where I went or whom I spoke to. When you asked whether I felt safe, I heard a question I had spent years escaping. I understood then why concern could feel like control when it came from the wrong history. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have respected the answer and still told you what I saw clearly." "You did respect it. Maybe too well." She turned the paper cup in her hands. "I was afraid you would think I was inviting you into a mess." That sentence opened a door neither of us had the courage to walk through. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Carl's name appeared on the screen. I stepped away from Elena and answered. "You are suspended, effective immediately," he said.
Unauthorized deployment, insubordination, misuse of the dispatch system, and unlawful entry into a private residence.
There was an active emergency. The police had not authorized you to breach. They were behind me when I did it. You left your assigned post after I gave a direct order. Internal Affairs will contact you." His tone carried no anger. That made the call feel rehearsed. "Why did you hold the patrol units?" I asked. A pause, barely a breath, but I heard it. "Operational judgment. You created a phantom domestic call on Jackson." "Be careful, Lieutenant." The line went dead. Elena had heard enough to understand. "This happened because of us," she said. "No, it happened because Carl delayed help to a child in danger. But your career is not more important than Owen." Her eyes filled and she looked away. I wanted to touch her hand. Instead, I kept both of mine around the coffee cup. She had survived a man who treated every boundary as an obstacle. Whatever I felt for her, I would not turn gratitude into pressure. Derek was charged with aggravated assault, burglary, child endangerment, and attempted coercion. Yet by the following afternoon, his attorney secured bond. The prosecutor requested stricter conditions, but the judge said the state's property fraud evidence was incomplete and ordered electronic monitoring, no contact, and a distance requirement. Elena listened to the ruling from a victim services office. I sat across the hall because she had asked me to come but had not asked me to enter. When she emerged, her face was pale. "He knows where we live," she said. "We can change the locks and add window alarms today." "He knows where Owen goes to school." "We'll speak to the principal and create a pickup password." "He knows how to make people believe he belongs." That fear was more difficult to answer. Derek had once been her husband. He knew old birthdays, family stories, and which voice made Owen hesitate. "Iron decide what happens next," I said. "Not me, not Derek. I can give you options, and you choose." She studied me for a moment, measuring whether I meant it. "Come inside," she said. We spent that afternoon turning her home from a place of terror back into a place with choices. Malik replaced the broken back door. Jenna helped Elena document every damaged item and photograph every bruise. Tessa brought soup and made Owen laugh by pretending the new window sensors were secret agent equipment. I installed longer screws in the strike plates, added a motion light to the yard, and programmed a duress code into the alarm. Elena did not stand aside while everyone rescued her. She made calls to the school, the prosecutor, her bank, and the county records office. She froze the title, filed a fraud alert, and asked her attorney to petition for an emergency protective order. When the clerk confirmed that someone had requested a certified copy of her deed 2 weeks earlier, Elena wrote down the name of the requesting agent. Martin Hale, representing Westbridge Property Solutions. "Do you know him?" I asked. "No, but my father might have." Her father, Samuel Brooks, had died 3 years earlier. I knew he had been an accountant because Elena once mentioned he could find a $5 error in a 100-page ledger. I had not known he spent 15 years as a compliance auditor for regional casinos. "He hated gambling," she said as we sorted papers at the kitchen table. "Not because of the games, because of the people who used casinos to make dirty money look clean." Owen colored beside us, drawing our block with every house in a different impossible color. Mine was blue. Elena's was yellow. Between them, he drew a bridge. "Grandpa had a safe," Owen said without looking up. Elena's hand stopped over a folder.
"What safe?"
"The one behind the wall." She stared at him. "There is no safe behind the wall." Owen pointed toward the basement door. "Grandpa showed me. He said it was a treasure, but not for kids." We went downstairs together. The basement smelled of concrete, laundry soap, and old wood. Samuel had built shelves along one wall. Behind a row of paint cans, Owen pressed a knot in the paneling. Nothing happened. He pressed another, then frowned. "He used the little metal thing." "A key?" Elena asked. Owen nodded. "The silver one in the blue box." The key was not there. The missing deed suddenly felt like camouflage. Someone had searched the box not only for ownership papers, but for access to whatever Samuel hid. Elena called Detective Jenna Cole, who had been assigned to the follow-up investigation because of the attempted property transfer. Jenna arrived with a warrant technician and opened the panel without damaging it. Behind the wood was a compact fire-rated safe, empty except for a torn envelope and dust outlining the shape of a small hard drive. Elena gripped the basement railing. "He took it." "Maybe," Jenna said. "But why force you to sign over the house if he already had what he wanted?" Owen raised his hand as though he were in class. "The bad man didn't find Grandpa's treasure." We all looked at him. "How do you know?" I asked. "Because he yelled at Mom. He said, 'Where did the old man move it?'" Elena knelt beside her son. "Did Grandpa ever show you another hiding place?" Owen shook his head, then looked at his drawing upstairs as if the answer might be in the colors. "He said a house remembers who protects it." It sounded like a grandfather's riddle. It also sounded like a clue. For the next week, I was officially forbidden from working, accessing dispatch systems, or contacting employees about the investigation. Internal Affairs investigator Dana Price interviewed me for 3 hours. She asked why I knew so much about Elena's routines, why I overrode Carl, and whether personal feelings impaired my judgment. "I care about her," I said. Dana lifted her pen. "Romantically?" I thought about denying it. A denial would have been easier for my case and dishonest in every way that mattered. "Yes." "Did that affect your decision to deploy?" "It affected how afraid I was. It did not affect the facts. A child reported an active assault. Available units existed, and my supervisor attempted to delay them." "Can you prove the units were available?" "The logs can." "The preliminary audit shows Patrol 312 out of service and Patrol 327 assigned to Jackson." "Then someone altered the statuses." Dana's expression did not change. "That is a serious allegation. So is delaying police while a woman is beaten." When the interview ended, I walked home under a sky the color of wet concrete. My house looked unchanged, but across the street, Elena's new motion light swept over the yard. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to report, no radio clipped to my belt, and no certainty that the work I had built my life around would still be mine. A small figure sat on my front steps. Owen held 2 juice boxes. He offered me one. "Mom says you're not allowed to work because you saved us." That is a complicated version, but yes. Are grown-ups always that dumb? More often than we admit. He nodded as though I had confirmed an important theory. Then he pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket. It was the drawing of our block. The bridge between our houses had been colored red. "What does the bridge mean?" I asked. "So Mom can come over without being scared." My throat tightened. "Owen, your mom does not have to go anywhere she doesn't choose." "I know. She chooses here a lot." Before I could ask what that meant, Elena crossed the street carrying a casserole dish. She wore a soft gray sweater and moved carefully because of her rib.
The fading bruise near her temple made something cold settle inside me.
"I told him not to bother you," she said. "He brought provisions." Owen held up the juice box proudly. Elena sat beside me, leaving enough space to make the choice visible. "I brought dinner, not because I owe you, good, and not because you're suspended, also good. I brought it because I wanted to." That was the first clear step either of us took. We ate at my kitchen table. Owen inspected every room and declared my house too brown. Elena found a photograph of my older brother and me in turnout gear. She asked about him, and I told her the truth I usually compressed into one sentence. My brother Daniel had been a firefighter. 10 years earlier, he entered a warehouse after a supervisor ignored a report about an unstable roof. Daniel died when it collapsed.
I joined rescue coordination because I believed the right information, heard at the right moment, could keep another family from receiving the phone call mine did. "That's why Carl's order hit you so hard," Elena said. "It was part of it." "And the other part?" I looked toward Owen, who was arranging magnets on my refrigerator. "The other part was your address." Elena lowered her eyes. "I used to watch for your truck on nights you worked late." I had imagined that porch light meant something. Hearing it nearly undid me. "Why?" I asked. "Because when it turned into your driveway, I could sleep." The room became very quiet. Owen held up a magnet shaped like a cow. "This one should be on top because he is the boss." Elena laughed, and the moment loosened without disappearing. We did not kiss that night. We did something harder. We told the truth and allowed it to remain between us without demanding an immediate promise. 2 days later, Owen remembered the silver badge. Jenna was at Elena's house reviewing a photo lineup of Derek's known associates. None of the faces meant anything to him. Frustrated, he pushed the pages away. "The man Derek met didn't look like those people," he said. "He looked like Mr. Ryan's work." I was standing in the doorway. "What do you mean?" "He had a shiny thing," Owen tapped his chest, "like the rescue badge, and a black ring." Carl wore a matte black wedding band. He had told everyone silicone was safer around equipment. "When did you see him?" Jenna asked. "Before school, a long time ago. Derek was in the car and the rescue man gave him an envelope." Elena's face lost color. "Where?" "By the playground." Children remember differently from adults. They may forget dates and preserve details, a ring, a smell, the color of an envelope. Owen could not identify Carl by name, but when Jenna showed him a staff photograph from the coordination center, his finger stopped on Carl's face. "That's him." Jenna immediately notified her supervisor and internal affairs. By evening, Dana Price called me. "Do not confront Voss," she said. "Do not access the center. Do not discuss this with staff." "Are you searching his records?" "I cannot tell you that." "Then tell me whether Elena and Owen are safe. I can tell you we are taking the statement seriously." It was the kind of answer I had given frightened families when an investigation had more questions than protections. I finally understood how empty it could sound. Elena refused to leave her home permanently. "I spent years saving for repairs, planning that garden and making every room ours," she said. "Derek does not get to turn it into a place we surrender." Her courage was not denial. She accepted a temporary police camera, changed Owen's route to school, and arranged for her sister to stay overnight. She also placed copies of every document with her attorney and in a bank safe deposit box. "I'm staying," she said. "But I'm not pretending strength means doing it alone." That sentence changed how I saw her. I had always admired her independence. Now I understood the deeper strength was her ability to choose connection without giving up control. The break came from an object no one had considered evidence: the old brass mailbox mounted beside Elena's basement workbench. Samuel had removed it from the front porch years before and kept it because Owen liked dropping notes through the slot. One evening,
Owen demonstrated the game for Jenna. A folded paper fell through, but instead of landing inside the box, it slid behind the false back panel. Elena stared at the narrow seam. My father built that. Jenna put on gloves and opened the panel. Inside was a padded envelope containing a small, encrypted hard drive and a handwritten letter addressed to Elena. Samuel explained that his casino audits had uncovered a network using distressed property companies, private gambling debts, and false consulting payments to wash money. Westbridge Property Solutions was one of the shell companies. He had copied transaction records, account numbers, and names after realizing someone inside local emergency services was supplying private addresses and shift information to debt collectors. He had hidden the evidence because one of the names belonged to a respected city employee, Carl Voss. Samuel had planned to meet federal investigators. His sudden heart attack occurred first. He moved the drive when he suspected his home had been searched, then left the clue about a house, remembering who protected it. The old mailbox had once protected the family's letters from rain. Elena read the final line aloud. "Trust records, but trust character more. A record can be stolen. Character reveals itself under pressure." Jenna took the drive into evidence under a formal chain of custody. Federal technicians created a verified forensic image that same day, allowing the physical device to be released later through Elena's attorney. That should have ended the danger. Instead, it exposed how desperate Carl and Derek had become. The next afternoon, Elena attended a protective order hearing. Her sister waited at the school to collect Owen, using the new password system. At 2:38 p.m., the school received a call from someone identifying himself as a police sergeant. He said a gas leak required immediate evacuation and directed staff to release children through the East Athletic Gate, where officers would reunite them with approved guardians. The call displayed a city emergency services number. It was false. Carl knew how to spoof the outgoing line. Derek wore a reflective utility vest and called Owen by name. In the confusion, he pulled the boy into a van before Elena's sister reached the gate. I learned about the abduction when Elena called me from the courthouse parking lot. I had never heard a human voice contain so much terror and still remain understandable. "They took him," she said. "Ryan, they took Owen." "Police are tracking Derek's monitor. He cut it off. They found it near the river." I forced myself to ask the questions that panic tries to erase. What was Owen wearing? Did he have his watch? Had anyone seen the vehicle? Elena answered each one. The smartwatch was an inexpensive model I had configured after the first attack. It could send an emergency location only if Owen held the side button for 5 seconds. At 2:51, my phone received a silent alert. The location was 1438 Birchwood Lane. The chilling address had come back. I called Jenna while running across the street. Smoke was already pushing from a basement window. Derek's van sat behind the house, and Carl's city sedan blocked the alley. "They're inside," I said. "Structure fire, basement origin. Send fire and police. Owen's tracker is active upstairs. Ryan, wait for crews." Then I saw Owen at the second-floor window. He struck the glass once with both hands and vanished behind black smoke. Waiting was no longer an option. I grabbed the compact escape hood and extinguisher from my garage, tools I kept because rescue habits do not end at the station door. I entered through Elena's back door, staying low beneath the smoke. Heat rolled along the ceiling. Somewhere below, glass shattered and a man shouted, "Owen!" A faint pounding answered from upstairs. I climbed by touch. Derek had locked Owen in Elena's bedroom. I forced the door with a metal bar from the hallway, pulled the escape hood over his head, and lifted him against my chest. "Mom came back," he coughed. "She's downstairs." I carried him to the front porch as the first engine turned onto the block. Malik jumped down before the truck stopped. I handed Owen to him and gave a rapid report. 1 victim likely downstairs, 2 male suspects, basement fire, rear access compromised. "You're not cleared to enter," Malik said. "I know the layout." "So do I now. Stay here." Then Elena screamed from inside. She had returned moments after me and entered through the front, believing Owen was still trapped. A collapse near the dining room cut her off from the exit. Malik and I went in together under his officer's authority, advancing behind a charged hose line. We found Elena pinned by a fallen ceiling joist near the basement stairs. Carl stood beyond her, trying to reach the fire with a metal case in his hand. Derek had fled through a window and was tackled in the yard by police. Carl looked at me through the smoke. "You should have stayed suspended." He swung the case toward the flames.
Elena caught his ankle. He stumbled, and the case slid across the floor. I dragged it away while Malik forced Carl against the wall. The heat intensified. We lifted the joist enough for Elena to crawl free, then moved as a unit toward the front door. Halfway out, Owen ran from Tessa's side and shoved something into my hand. It was the hard drive. "Grandpa's treasure," he said. Jenna later learned Elena's attorney had returned the physical drive that morning after federal technicians certified the forensic image. Elena had hidden it in Owen's backpack because she planned to take it to the bank after court. Derek found the envelope, but never checked the backpack's insulated lunch pocket. Owen had carried it out of the bedroom beneath his shirt. I closed my fist around the drive and tucked it inside the inner pocket of Malik's turnout coat before we guided Elena through the smoke. The porch roof groaned as we crossed the threshold. Seconds later, part of the dining room ceiling collapsed behind us. Elena reached Owen and held him so tightly he protested that he could not breathe. Then she saw the blood on my sleeve from a cut along my forearm. "You went back," she said. "So did you. That was reckless." "Yes," she laughed once through tears. "I hate that this is when you finally agree with me." Federal investigators used Samuel's files, the copied drive, Carl's altered dispatch logs, and financial records from Westbridge to dismantle the laundering network. Carl had delayed the first police response because Derek promised the house and the hidden evidence would be delivered that night. Derek pleaded guilty after learning Carl had planned to blame every crime on him. Martin Hale and 6 others were indicted on fraud, extortion, money laundering, and conspiracy charges. My suspension was lifted. The city formally cleared my emergency override and disciplined the command failures that had allowed Carl to alter unit statuses without immediate review. I returned to duty with a new rule posted above my console. Every supervisor override on an active threat-to-life call required automatic secondary verification. Elena kept the house. Fire damaged the basement and dining room, but neighbors, firefighters, hospital co-workers, and people who barely knew us helped rebuild. Elena chose the paint, hired the contractors, and rejected 3 of my suggestions with admirable confidence. Our relationship did not begin with a dramatic kiss beside an ambulance. It grew in ordinary decisions after the danger ended. I drove Owen to school when Elena worked early. She left dinner in my refrigerator before night shifts. We attended counseling separately and later together because surviving a crisis is not the same as healing from it. One morning, 6 months after the fire, I entered Elena's kitchen and found 3 cups on the table. Owen sat between 2 plates of pancakes, looking pleased with himself. "I think Mr. Ryan should have a key," he announced. Elena leaned against the counter, holding a small brass key on a blue ribbon. "That depends," she said. "A key is not permission to make choices for us." "I know. It is not a debt." "I know that too. It means you knock when you can, come in when we need you, and let us do the same." I looked at the woman I had watched from across a street, once too cautious to tell her what she meant to me. Then I would be honored. She placed the key in my palm and closed my fingers around it. "I love you, Ryan," she said. "I love you too." Owen pushed the 3rd cup toward me. "Good, now eat before the pancakes get weird." The porch light still burns when I work late, but now it is not a signal between 2 separate houses. It is the light that guides me home. What happened taught me that emergency safety begins long before a crisis. Children should know their full address, how to call 911,
where to hide, and that they must never physically confront a violent adult. Families facing threats can create a code word, identify trusted neighbors, secure important records, inform schools about pickup restrictions, and practice a simple escape plan. Adults should take stalking, coercion, and property threats seriously, document incidents, and seek help from law enforcement, victim advocates, legal services, or domestic violence organizations. Most important, helping someone does not mean taking control of their decisions. Real protection preserves dignity, offers choices, and respects boundaries. Courage may be entering danger when no one else can, but healing often looks quieter. Listening, believing, preparing, and allowing survivors to lead the life they are rebuilding. If this story reminded you that one calm voice can change the outcome of a terrifying night, share it with someone who believes safety and love should protect freedom, not replace it. Like, subscribe, and tell me which choice showed the greatest courage.